Fanthorpe, and I'll be your host today. Today we have one returning guest and one new guest. Really excited to welcome Sian from The Attention Seeker, and Stanley Henry is here as well. And we're going to be talking about how to plan a photo shoot and content plan. So this is really important for our businesses. We want to make sure that we're seen out there in the public, expand our reach, get our word out there, and be a little bit organized about it. Now, you might be streaming through a number of different platforms. We are broadcast through YouTube, Facebook, LinkedIn, and we're here on Zoom. So no matter where you are, make sure that you get your questions answered by these two experts by using the comment section, the Q&A section, or the chat function, depending on where you're at. Now, these sessions occur Monday through Friday at 10 a.m. So book us in with your morning tea and build your business through knowledge and the help of experts like these two folks. Stanley, Sian, thank you so much for joining us here on Digital Boost.
Morning, everyone. Thanks for having us.
It's always a pleasure. It's always a pleasure. We love your sessions. We get so much great feedback. Obviously, Krupa wasn't able to make it because it's Diwali. So she's celebrating with her culture, and that's so, it's such a beautiful festival. I love the Festival of Lights. So hoping she's enjoying that with her community. And
she's eating a lot of cupcakes.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, is she cooking a lot of cupcakes? She does other cupcake business. Yeah. Awesome. Now, I'm going to let you crack on. I'm going to go and check and make sure everything's running in the background, but I will be here to assist with the facilitation of questions. Do you want to take them at the end or throughout?
Yeah, maybe at the end. Maybe at the end, if we see one that we can answer straight away, we will, but we'll probably try to do them at the end. I'll jump back in.
Fantastic. Okay. See ya.
All right. Okay. So welcome, guys. So my name's Stanley. This is Sian. Sian's going to come back shortly and jump back in the picture. I'm going to start off with a little bit about the why, and then Sian will come back in and do some of the execution with you, right? So we're going to have it in two parts. So you'll get to see Sian a little bit. Okay. So as I said, I'll start off with more about the why. Like, why is it important to plan a photo shoot and content planning, when content planning, and the reasons for hiring professionals or whatever you need to do. And Sian's going to come back in a bit later and talk more about the actual execution of it. What are the tools that we use? How do you plan stuff? How do you, recap on some of the writing of content that one of our staff, Krupa, has talked about previous episodes. But to start with, we want to talk about why. So first of all, why content plan? So quickly on that, the reason why we suggest people to plan content is that it is really hard to come up with content on the fly. And for people who try to push their content out for their business daily, as they make it up, wake up in the morning and think, oh, we've got to do a post today, that daily task and daily habit is really strenuous and very hard for people to do. But we know that by putting content out daily, or putting content out consistently, maybe is a better way to say it, that we have a much better chance of building an audience, building a tribe, getting that organic reach from our content over time. And so by trying to do that daily, it's really exhausting. And what happens, like any poorly planned out habit, we stop doing it. We stop being consistent. We stop putting up what we need to achieve the results that we're trying to get. And so that's where content planning comes in. And so content planning is about mapping out what content is going to go out over a given period of time. And when we look at that period of time, we look at it in sort of 90-day cycles. And that isn't set in stone. You don't have to do 90 days. It could be 30 days. It could be weekly. It could be annually. The reason why we do it 90 days is just that our processes and systems are built around a 90-day cycle to make it as efficient as possible for our team to do it. But every person, every business needs to find their own way to structure their process with what works with their business operations and their time management. And so ideally, something around 30 to sort of 90 days is probably ideal for most people. So somewhere in that thing, a 30-day cycle is pretty good for solopreneurs, people doing it on their own. You don't have to create too much, but also enough that you can do it one day a month and probably map out most of your content for that month in one day, right? So that's the first thing, content planning, really super important. There's plenty of other webinars to go into more depth with that. The second part of this content planning process is photo shoots. And there's a few things or questions, I suppose, we have to answer about photo shoots. One is why photo shoots, and maybe why is it not video, right? Everyone talks about why is video, or isn't video much better than photos, right? Isn't video like this potential content that we're doing now, isn't it a better way to get your points across or build rapport with customers, et cetera, et cetera? And the simple answer is yes, video is much better at doing that, hence why YouTube is such a big, powerful platform these days. But the difference between video and still images or photos is that video is much harder to produce. It's much more costly, time consuming, and the bang for buck is just completely skewed towards photography. So we always try to suggest to people when they're starting out to produce content, take the photography route or take the images route, because video is just such a hard, costly thing to do. If you can do it and you're really good at video and you're really good at editing and you can churn out a couple of videos every week, then perfect, do it. It's a surefire way to get a really quick rapport with your customers or your audience, but it's also a very hard thing to do. So this is where photography comes in. In the same time, it might take you to, make one sort of 4 to 5 minute video, or you can probably, that 4 to 5 minute video probably takes 4 to 5 hours of recording time and, all that sort of stuff, plus post-production, pre-production, and all these other things that go into creating video. Well, in 4 or 5 hours in a photo shoot, you can probably get 60 to 100 images taken, right? Which is the equivalent of 60 to 100 posts, as opposed to one post from a video. So this is why we're rolling into this idea of photography for our content planning. It's a much easier way to make lots of content at scale for people who don't have the resources or time to be able to do all the other things such as video and blah, 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 right? So as someone in your business, and I'm assuming, because we're on Digital Boost, the reason you're here is trying to find ways of using digital platforms to grow your business, and using platforms like Facebook and Instagram and LinkedIn and YouTube and all these other places where you can distribute your content for free. One of the most effective ways is using photography as that medium to get across your story. So that's why photography, okay? The next thing is, well, photos on their own only tell so much of a story. And when you're doing content planning for a business, photos can't tell the whole story. And often they don't tell enough of a story for you to really get your audience to buy in on what you're trying to put out. And let's say you're a professional service, you really want to start talking about a lot of things, right? In professional services or B2B businesses, it's often a person-to-person interaction. So you're trying to help establish a voice or a relationship with your audience on a person-to-person level. So you're probably wanting to tell stories about you as an individual or the people in your business. And in a B2C business, you're often wanting to personify the products that you're selling, in terms of let's say it's Nike and they're trying to sell shoes. You want to personify the feeling of those shoes and what that means to feel Nike and the brand that it is, right? And to do that, sometimes you need words, right? We all remember slogans, Nike's Just Do It is just as powerful, if not more powerful than the Nike swoosh, right? In terms of what it tells you about the brand and what it makes you feel. So with images, you also need copy. You also need written content to go along with them. And so when Sian comes on, she will eventually show you quickly through about how we plan our written content and how that's important. And then we always start there so that we have a story first. And then what we do with that story is we then try to visually tell that story through imagery. Okay. And so to do that, we need a photographer. And we really recommend getting photographers for these photo shoots instead of just using, you and your mate running down with your phone and taking photos and trying to build up a catalog, a library of images for your post. I mean, that can be done. It does work. And if you're on a budget, that is 100% a way to do it. There is no reason why you can't. Today's smartphones, I mean, these things are a complete media device. They can do everything. And you can get really good high quality images of it. But if you think about 3 months of content, if you were to plan out 3 months of content, if you're posting Monday to Friday once a day for 3 months, that's around 60 posts that you're going to need, right? 12 weeks by 5 days, 60 posts. And as I just said, you can get about 60 posts done in a 4 to 5 hour photo shoot if planned properly, which is what Sian will come on shortly and talk to you about. But the cost of doing a photo shoot for 4 to 5 hours isn't that much when you think about how long that content's going to last. You know, it could be about $600 to $900 for a 4 or 5 hour shoot, depending on the photographer. Some will charge more, some will charge less. But say $600 to $900 is a pretty good number to work with. And the reason why it's so important to use a professional is that they are a professional for a reason. They know how to tell stories visually. They're going to be able to take that story you're trying to get across, the content you're going to get across, and they're going to tell it or take the photos that tell that story visually for you to complement the content that you're putting out. And they're professionals for a reason, right? Like if you're not a pro photographer or you don't know a lot about photography, then it's a real small price to pay for a really high quality amount of images that will help tell your story for you, right? So to recap a little bit, you know, content planning is so important because it saves you time. It helps you actually be consistent and put out content consistently. Putting out content consistently helps you stay on track. It helps you build an audience. It helps you build your followers actually coming back each day to read your content and be a part of your content and be a part of the community that you're building. Photography is often a better way to make content than videography because videography is expensive and photography is a lot lower cost of entry. And you can get more photos than you can video for the same time and money. And hiring a professional is a really cost-effective way of getting a lot of content really fast, right? And making sure that it works and that the photos are great. And don't underestimate the value, well, the difference between a pro photographer and a hobbyist, or even what you can do on your phone, right? I'm, got all the fancy camera equipment myself, but I'm terrible at photos when I put them up next to a professional photographer. I'm probably better than your average person, but when you put them up next to our photographers, mine fall flat really fast. So getting a professional is really, really helpful. So what we're going to do next is Sian is going to jump in and Minzing, no, I can't stop moving my hands any less. So you're just going to have to put up with it. So sorry about that. That's how I talk. You probably call me Italian. But Sian's going to jump on next and she's going to start talking about the execution of how to take what we do now and actually get into practice. So I'll call Sian up and then she can take over. All right, cheers guys.
Thanks, Stan. Hi, guys. So this is my first time I've ever done anything like this. So I've got my notes here that I will be referring to. Awesome. So I know that Crip is obviously taking you guys through how to develop your content, but I'm just going to do a quick recap because it will be relevant for planning our photos. So let me just share my screen here. Cool. So basically what we do, just to recap, so we create a discovery session with our clients to figure out a bit about them, their core pillars, what they talk about in their lives, which is sort of like their morals, and we figure out their stories so that they've got enough to talk about. And then we go through here, and I hope you guys can see this, but we've got the core pillars here, conversation topics, headline, subheading, challenge, solution, and question. And so this is how we structure our posts. And this is really handy for photo shoots because what you can do is you can refer to your conversation topics and your posts to keep your photos relevant to what you're posting. Cool. So just to reiterate on what Stan said about why photos are important, people like following other people, right? LinkedIn's still a social media platform. I've got a great example. My mum's an artist and she always posts her art on Instagram, just a photo of her art. But the post that she got the most likes on was a photo of her holding her artwork, and it just put a face to the name, because if people wanted to see her art, they'd go on her website, but they wanted to see her behind the scenes engagement and engage with that. Cool. So hiring a photographer is a bit like hiring someone that so hiring a staff member. you want to make sure that you are picky and you pick the right person, just because you want to be comfortable with them and you want to make sure that you are, you're going to be, in a vulnerable position in front of them. So let me just stop sharing this screen. Oh, cool. Yeah. Awesome. Did that stop sharing? Oh, here, stop sharing. Cool. Sorry. Okay. So, so what you can do is you can find them on freelancing websites or through word of mouth or through LinkedIn. And I just would say, sit down with them, talk to them about what you want to do, and remember that you've hired them. You're the one that's in control, and it has the potential to be a really fun day. And so definitely make sure that you find someone that you're comfortable with. A really good photographer won't make you feel awkward, and will make sure that the day runs comfortably. So what's going to really help once you've found the photographer is planning a mood board. And so I will show you how we plan ours. These are really important because it just gives a visual representation to what you want out of the photo shoot and out of the day. So back to sharing the screen. Oh, so hope you guys can see this. So this is a mood board that we planned here on using Milanote. And Milanote is an awesome program because it's really visual. And so it's really easy to be able to share with a photographer who's obviously going to be a visual person. So the way that we've planned them here is up the top here, we've got these core pillars that we were talking about in the first place, which I showed you initially. So I planned this with our photographer, Jessie, for one of our clients. So it was really easy on Milanote because we were able to put in these core pillars up the top and then went through into conversation topics. So this client here got really creative with, me and Jessie actually planned this one, and we got really creative with what we wanted because, LinkedIn is still social media. You still want to be able to engage people and make people stop scrolling and actually read what you have to say. And so we literally just pulled these off Google. So for these ones, for example, this client was in Palm Springs, and I thought that it would be really cool to have some imagery of where he was from. And so these images are literally just from Google. And so once you've pulled this all together, you can go to your photographer and say, I'm really keen on something like this. How can we work out how to do it? And it's obviously their job, so they're going to be able to help you execute that. So when it comes to working out a shot list, this is really important because it's like a run sheet. If anyone's ever worked in events, a run sheet is what you swear by. You have to make sure that you do everything to the day, to the time. And if you plan that in advance, then it's perfect because it's going to run smoothly. So things to keep in mind when creating a shot list is location. Obviously, this is going to tie into, how the day runs. If you need to meet the photographer somewhere, both drive to a separate location. Day and time. Day and time is important because of lighting, especially if you're working outside. You want to make sure that this is, something to think about. The photographer will be able to help you with planning, but it's just something to remember going into what you want to take photos of. Props and other people that you want with you. It's really cool to if you've talked about someone in a post, to engage them to come on board and, do this photo shoot with you. And just outfits, if you want to change outfits to look like you haven't just taken the photos all in a day, but something like that doesn't matter. Just remember that you want a lot of photos out of this one photo shoot and you want to be efficient. And so, just have fun as well. It's a fun day. Cool. So with the day of shooting, stick to the run sheet. It's really important because, like I said, it's like an event. It's making sure that you can keep the day efficient. Don't be afraid to improvise or add in your say. Like I said earlier, you hired the photographer and they're going to, be appreciative of what you have to say as well. Open communication is always important, and just make sure that you have fun, like I said before, because it is a fun day, and most people, once they're in front of the camera, and if you've got the right photographer, it's a comfortable day as well. So then I'll show you an example of once you've got the photos, how we put them into Milanote afterwards. So, oh God, I'm awful at this sharing screen business. So this is So this is our content planner here. So this is actually Stan's content planner. And so what we've done here on Milanote is we've added in the days of the week which we are going to post these. We've popped the photo on the top and the post down here. And it's all ready for Leisha, who does our who posts everything, to come in, grab the image, which is just downloaded onto Milanote, and post this onto LinkedIn. So it's all really efficient. Yeah, so that's pretty much how we create a photo for LinkedIn. Sam, is that good? Awesome.
All right. Okay. So her first time, so she's gone through that as fast as possible. And then now I'll you have to deal with my hand movements again, and go through the rest of this with you together, right? So we've got a question here from Karen that I'm a tradie and take photos of our works, so can't use a professional photographer. Any tips we can use to overcome poor lighting or space restraints to get a good photo? Really good question, actually, about getting work on site at jobs and being able to, we've got a few people in different trades as well, which is quite hard to get some of the specific photos taken. And so what we do, or what we say to them to get better lighting and whatnot, is that there are little tools and gadgets. There are some little tiny light fixtures and stuff that you can have on your device if you want to go down that route. It's costly. Like, you got to buy things, you got to buy attachments, you got to carry them. They don't always work because there are other things you got to carry, right? So my advice is just to get a phone with night mode. If you've got an Apple iPhone, the night modes are great on there. Pixels, Samsungs, they got really good night modes that you can use to get better lighting if it's a real bad lighting situation. Otherwise, the better thing is just to try your best to take those photos in an open environment, right? Like, if it is something, some way that you can get more natural light through it, open up windows if you're inside. Turning on lights doesn't always help. That's a bit hard, but it's a really hard thing to do practically when you're on the job, because as a trader, you don't want to be carrying all these little gadgets to take all the perfect lighting, right? The alternative is to stage a lot of shots, right? Is to spend a few hours with a photographer staging shots. It takes a little bit more planning, which is why some of the stuff that that Sian just went through about, like, working through that planning process with your photographer does really help. If you can do that, you can then stage some photos, and they're staged, but they are staged of real scenarios, right? So you might know certain situations at your work, which you can take the photographer on site with you and do it. Alternatively, as a gang of tradies, if you've got teammates and stuff, you'd maybe be in a situation and get them to come in and help take that photo. But yeah, it's a hard one. So the only real way is to stage it. There is a few other questions here, I think. I'm working in the kitchen. My products are spice mixes and hot beverages, making meals, etc. Do you have any suggestions about a run sheet? I understand if this is too much for the time here.
Oh, Nella, you're lovely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's a complex one I can answer if you want. Did you have something, Anna-Mari?
No, I was just jumping on to assist, but yeah, lots of good feedback coming through the channel. And if you were looking for that Milanote, I've dropped the link into the chat on all platforms while you have a think about this question. But we can do it at the end, Stanley. Like, if you want to keep rolling on, and we can take some of this we can.
That's okay. I can go off this one. Yeah, because I'm probably going to retouch on some of the stuff that Sian did anyway, just to give more explanation anyway, just to really sink it in, because there's just so much to it,
Yeah.
But in terms of that one, Neela, the suggestions about a run sheet for doing, for kitchen or food photography. My advice for food photography is way harder than most people think. Just because Instagram was invented and then everyone started taking photos of their dinner, we all think food photography is super easy to do. My background is hospitality. I came from working in hotels and food and beverage operations, and really good food photography is very hard. And so I can't highly recommend enough to get a professional food photographer to do your food shots. Look, it's going to be expensive, but it's going to be well worth the money. And in terms of a run sheet, what I would suggest for you to do as the person who's creating the food or working with the spices is to plan out what are the elements of your work or day-to-day work that you really want to get across. Like, what are the spices you want to see? What are the things that you want to do or show? And what are the dishes, right? And map those out, and then have a really good food photographer, have that consultation with them and get them to tell you how they would best do that. Food photographers, if you have someone who's a specialist in food photography, they will have all the tips and tricks, right? Half the time there won't be your real food in there. They've got all these tricks for putting other ingredients in there to making the food look the way it is. If it's you sort of making food, that's a little different because you probably want to use the real ingredients rather than glue and stuff like that people use as substitutes. But still, as you're doing that process, a real good food photographer or person who does restaurants and stuff like that, they'll be able to help you with that and take you through it. And it is an expensive thing for food photographers. They aren't cheap. They're more expensive than your casual social media sort of photography. So 4 to 5 hours or a whole day shoot could be $2,000, $3,000. It could be. There are probably people out there who do it cheaper, and there's probably people out there who do it 3 times that price. But as you're making it, having someone there who's professional doing it trust me, it'll come out just 100 times better. If you are very good at already taking photos and you think you can do it yourself, then the best run sheet is just to think, especially when you're making it, as you're building a recipe out, is think about the stages of the recipe or the process that are most crucial to show the evolution of the dish. And I hope that translates well. Okay, cool. I don't think there was any more in there right now. But what we will do is I will sort of talk a little bit about, and I'm happy to take questions on the fly here as we go now that I'm back, and we can talk about stuff. And I just want to talk a bit more about the why as well with some of the tools that we did. For instance, Milanote, why are we using Milanote and why do we put it into that framework? And I think it's really important to get this stuff across. A lot of the time when we're thinking of content, we often are just trying things randomly. Like we're trying to pull stuff together and just, it's the old, just get it done, try to make it work. And that's really good. That's how we work. We always just test and iterate. But there are some real simple stuff that, and why we showed you Milanote. And it's so super important because of how much time and effort it saves you. And it doesn't have to be Milanote, but it can be anything. So I just want to go back real quickly and share this screen here with you guys and just talk through this a little bit, right? Just to make sure we're all on the same page as to why this is what we do. So first of all, this can be any tool. I mean, this could be a whiteboard, it doesn't matter. The idea here is that this here is a way to fully visually see all your content in one space. With this particular tool, we can hide stuff, right? We can click these and it opens it up and it shows us just what we want to see. But sometimes you just might want a big open display, right? So there are plenty of different tools. It might literally be a whiteboard in your office that you map this out on, and that's just okay. But what it helps you do is plan things properly, right? And you can see the story evolve. So when you have your content planned out this way, rather than ad hoc, I'm just going to put this one up today, I'm just going to do this one today. When you do it this way, you can actually see what you're trying to show. You can see the story evolve. You can see how it visually looks and how it's going to be shown on the platform, right? You can say, does that image really work with this? Have I got everything I need for the week? That's something else. Sometimes you'll be going so fast, you won't realize if you've got something or not. So I can't stress enough about having the right tool to do this. The other way to do this is to use a publishing tool. And so we use a tool called Publer. And we got this particular one really cheap. So we got it from AppSumo. I don't know if I would like if you're going to get a publishing tool, there are plenty of options. There's Hootsuite and there's Later and there's, there's a plethora of different publishing tools. But this is another way of scheduling, right? Or planning, because you can put all your images in here as a draft. And then from that, you can see everything just the same way we did. And now there are some tools like Hootsuite, which maybe Anamari can put in the link. If you go and log in to Hootsuite on your phone, if you download the app, you can get a free account for one of your social profiles. So let's say LinkedIn's your platform of choice. You can log in on your phone. You've got to sign up on your phone to Hootsuite, and you'll get a free account. And then you can plan it like this, right? And so you can see everything. So as you can see, my content is planned out for the next 2 weeks. We're in the process of reloading another 3 months worth of content for me. But you can see it all, right? It's all right there. You can jump in a calendar view and I can pick my profile and I can see, yep, on Tuesday at 9:31, there's a post that's coming out and this is the image that I'm using and this is the text that I'm using. And so it's like just a really good way of visually telling the story or visually seeing the story you're trying to put out, and making sure you've got everything accounted for, right? So I just really wanted to make sure we push that, to make sure that we really push that further and that people actually understand the importance of planning that content that way. The next thing I wanted to show you is our planning Excel template that we use. I'll share my screen again, but what I'll do is I will explain each of the pieces of it. And look, what you can do is go back and watch this video, pause on it, create your own spreadsheet that looks similar, and use it. It's a really good way of writing lots of content so that you have the story you want to tell later on, right? So then you can go get the photo part. So let's go through that a little bit more. This is like probably the crux of our whole company. So I'm probably giving away all the trade secrets right here. But it's just such good, such a good template that really helps people create a lot of content on scale. So first of all, I'll explain these top parts here. Let me just open up the chat. If you need this bigger, just let me know in the chat and I can zoom in a little bit. But in this first column here, we've got what we call core pillars. And if I sort by A to Z, you can see we have a bunch of core pillars. They're all the same, right? And so actually there is 5 of them in there. So we have 5 core pillars for me this is my content. So mine is leadership, entrepreneurship, Stanley, the individual, brand and marketing, and community, right? So these 4 and that one there. Those are my 5 pillars. So what is a pillar? A pillar is your values, right? It's what your ethics, it's what you talk about all the time. It's part of who you are and your personality, and it makes up a big portion of your daily life, right? And so for me, leadership's a big thing for me, right? As a hotelier and as a general manager of hotels, it was a big part. And now owning my own company, it's even probably more important with my own employees. Entrepreneurship, I've got that entrepreneurship sort of mindset and spirit, and owning my own business has always been a dream of mine and something I've done a couple of times and now have a successful one now. Stanley the individual is a pillar because I really want my audience to know me personally. I really want to build that trust and connection with my audience. I don't need thousands of clients. I only need, a few, like 100 or something like that. I don't need thousands with the type of business that we have. So I want a real good personal connection with the people that become clients with us. Brand and marketing, well, that's what our company does. So it's a really important thing that we talk about a lot. And community. Community's huge for us. It's a big part of our business. We're part of many communities and we actively participate in them. So that's our core pillars. 3 to 7 is a good number. Try keep it less than more is my advice, because these things don't change. They are core to you as a person. They change very rarely, maybe once every few years, because these are you. The next is conversation topic. Now, my best way to explain a conversation topic is it is the conversation you want to have around that core pillar, right? And so there might be 3 to 5 different conversations you want to have around leadership. Okay, so, if I have a look at mine and we go to my leadership one, One of them is putting my team's goals first over the company's goals, the Attention Seekers recruitment plan, prioritizing my team's development, and I love my team to be full of generalists, right? So there's my 4 conversations that I want to have around leadership. Now, you'll note there are plenty of other conversations you can have around leadership. And so we've only chosen a few, the ones that I want to have, right? So it's super important that the conversations that you're having in your content are the one you want to have around your core pillar. So 3 to 5 them. So I've got 4 and I've got 5 core pillars. So I've got 4 conversation topics for every core pillar. So 4 by 5 is 20. So there are 20 conversations in total that I want to have with my audience. And I post once a day, Monday to Friday. So if I do 1 post for every conversation topic, every day, Monday to Friday, for 4 weeks, I will have content and not repeat any of those conversations, right? And then week 5 comes, day 1, Monday, I can start back at the start again and start having those same conversations again. And the reason I want to repeat those conversations is those are the conversations I want to have. So I want to keep having them. And the more I repeat the conversations that I have more opportunities to have those conversations with people, and I start to get known for those conversations. And those are the conversations I want to be known for, right? Does that make sense? Yep. So Janti, yep, there'll always be a recording for this. So Anamari will post it up everywhere later on, so you can come back and see this. Next, headline. So these next 5 columns are how we structure our posts and how we write them, so people can, so that we as a team can write posts en masse for our clients and efficiently. A headline is simple. It is something that catches people's attention. It agitates them or excites them and wants them to read more of what you've written, right? So agitating and excite, those are the 2 key words. It's clickbait, right? It's those headlines you see in newspapers. To stop it being clickbait is what the rest of it is. Clickbait means that you say something that isn't actually what the article or the note is about, the comment's about. But with us, a headline, it's catchy, it catches people's eyes, it excites or agitates. Your subheading finishes off the headline. Between the 2, between your headline and your subheading, you can have a complete post in those 2 parts, right? The subheading should finish off what the headline's saying and give the reader a complete understanding of what the rest of the post is going to be about, and sort of state an opinion briefly. The rest of the post will explain that, but between those 2, you could post them up as a post and it'd be enough. Now, when we start planning content, we do headlines first and only headlines. We don't move on to anything else until we've done like 5 to 10 headlines for every single conversation topic. So let's put that in perspective. We had 20 conversation topics. So I'm sorry if my math is going too fast. We had 20 conversation topics, and now we're going to map out 5, or brainstorm 5 headlines for every conversation topic. So now we have 100 headlines. And once we've refined those headlines and deleted the ones we don't like and added in ones we do like, we now have 100 headlines for 100 posts. And seriously, if you have done this part properly, this will be really easy. And you'll have 100 posts. And as we just said, 100 posts is going to take you through about 5 months of posting. Then we complement it with a subheading, and then we move on. A challenge, I'm not going to get into too much depth here, but a challenge is the challenge that has been faced in the premise that you've set through the heading and the subheading. What is the challenge or the problem that needs to be overcome? Talk about it in that way. What is it that people will, I guess, argue against your statement in the headline and the subheading, and address it, address those challenges and those problems and put it all out there. And what you're trying to do here is getting people to nod their head and say, yeah, I agree. Yep, that's true. And we like that for me, when we're creating content, there's always a test for me. When I read the challenge, do I find myself nodding my head? Solution is the payoff. So it is the extra part, like it solves the challenge you've just presented in that previous part, right? It gives a solution to it, and you write that out. It's important you have this. It's the payoff, And then the question or the call to action is the final question or thought to get people to think about stuff. And that sort of puts it all together, right? So that's one way of planning it. And there is, as Anamari's put in there, there is a whole video that goes into this more detail, but I kind of wanted to just put that in there because if you do plan this properly, you then plan out your mood board and you do this properly and go through the stuff that Sian took you through, and then you use a publishing tool or Milanote to then plan out your content, it makes everything else just far easier to do, right? It looks like a lot, but when you sit down and you do it in that order and you take it step by step and you bring in the help when you need the help and you bring in friends and family to brainstorm with you, it makes that process just like using a structure, like anything in life. If you have a structure and a way to do stuff, it just completely makes the process just 100 times easier. So that's probably most of what I've got to say today. I hope, I'm keen for any other questions. If there's people out there who have some questions on that content writing stuff that we just did, or photographers or anything like that, or feel free to reach out anytime. We know plenty of photographers around the country if you ever need a recommendation on one. But yeah.
And I would say, the best way to connect with Stanley would be on LinkedIn. I would say that'd probably be right.
Sure.
So
Yep.
That's his realm, so to speak.
Yeah,
and
that's it.
Yeah, if you
Sian,
don't
we
have a
find Sian
LinkedIn
there too.
account, get one.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Thanks so much, man. So just getting some feedback here, this amazing presentation. I will say that Facebook has been kind of blowing up. So that's where I've been spending most of my time, is checking in with those folks on Facebook and just like the positive comments coming through and the shares going out. So much, Aroha coming through there. We love that. So yes, photographer recommendations in Whangarei or Northland. I would say like the best way to do this would be to contact Stanley directly, just because there probably are few, and we'd want to be able to give you the details for those folks as well. You're going to want to be able to contact them. So
yeah, for sure. Yeah, just get in contact me on LinkedIn and send me a message, Carol, and I can help put you in the right direction.
Yes, and I would like to just comment, there was that question about recordings and all of that. And just so you know, there's a couple of different ways you can access sessions. So maybe you've just joined us and you don't realize that Stanley has done a number of other sessions as well as Krupa. And this is Sian's first time here. And we are so grateful getting some positive feedback about your session as well. You can access any of the sessions that we've run with the attention seeker by going to the "in case you missed it" section on the main dashboard. That's one way you can do it, and going into the archives. Or we now have a search function on the website. Hallelujah. So you can find any of the sessions by just going the attention seeker, and it should pull up all the Q&As that we've done. Stanley is featured in a number of other kind of how-to videos. So there's a lot on the site that you can access with this kind of style, because we all have our style. It's not just content that we're looking for, but we all learn in different ways. So each one of our presenters brings a different flavor to the Digital Boost meal, doesn't it? Question here. What do you recommend for knitwear based in Auckland? Oh, hi, Charlie. Current restrictions making it difficult for finding models and photographers.
Yeah, this is tough. So as a company that creates content for people, lockdown was tough because we couldn't get photographers out. Currently, in the current 3.1 or whatever we're calling this, you don't really have many options, to be fair. You have to do that on your lonesome. However, there is one option, which is what we can do currently with clients, is one photographer, one client in an outside environment, masked up photography. So photographers can work in that environment. With knitwear, that probably isn't great. It doesn't help a lot. Next week at 3.2, if we do go there, if we do, you can have more people there, right? So then you can get models. And look, let's be honest, models and photographers are desperate for work. It's been tough for them over lockdown because they are people who need to be in places and studios and things like that. But again, it's going to have to be outdoors. That's not terrible with knitwear because, depends on what type of knitwear it is. But yeah, my advice is right now, it's just one-on-one. So if you are the model, or you can just get a model, a photographer, they can work together without you being there. That is something that can happen. But yeah, I better not give any other advice.
I actually, you know what, like this is something that rings close to my heart as well as an artist myself, and having the ability to create art, going into a studio, which I can't do right now, you know, so can't really like produce any new content. And what it made me realize was I wasn't doing enough content before. I wasn't, exactly what you said when you're like, plan out so much content in advance. So now I'm in, you know, I myself and so many other artists are in this predicament where possibly we don't have access to our studios and stuff like that. So we can't actually create photos of that stuff. And we're going, what are we going to do now? Let's do a video of me dancing. No, you know, it's kind of like that, you know, you're like, how do you create? It just made me realize, plan in advance, and then you can always, you know, just have fillers for a little while. It just keeps you top of mind and relevant, right?
Yeah, that's such an important thing, Anna-Marie. Like with my content, I've still been putting out content this last 3 months, whatever it's been. And that's because over the course of the year, whenever we had an event on or anything, photographers come along to those and take photos, right? And do event photography anyway. But obviously part of their brief was to make sure there's lots of content about me and the team, or photos, so that I've got just this huge library of images that will, you know, they will last us forever because there's just so much in there. So yeah, so like I couldn't agree more that you definitely need to plan the stuff. But another quick bit on that is that you know, Sian started with us at the start of lockdown. I literally like offered her the role as we went into lockdown. And we brought her on as part of her role is videography, right? So to do more video, and we then couldn't see each other, so we couldn't do video. So what I said to her is like, well, how do we do this? You know, just because there's restrictions and things, what can we do? How can we overcome this barrier? And so what she did is planned a whole set of questions. She told me how to set up the camera and everything inside my living room, and set it up with me and Claire. She got it all set up. We had lights and everything. She was obviously remote, and we hit record. We had her on the screen, and she was interviewing us in a way that allowed me to then answer and get a bunch of content. And now she's got all like an hour long or an hour and a half worth of video footage.
Yeah, we've got like 10 weeks worth of 1 minute clips just from that one video as well. So
there are some things you can do. So for the knitwear, I forget the name, sorry, but for the person who put up the stuff, Charlie, sorry. For the knitwear, what you could do is, you are in lockdown, people know you're in lockdown, so do some video and talk to the camera, just talking head, short, sharp stuff. Don't try to be too flash about it. Don't try to edit it. Just talk to your audience and tell them what's going on in your world as, you know, someone who owns this knitwear business right now. You know, people want to see that. They want to share that story. I did say video is expensive to do, but if you're just doing simple talking head story stuff.
Yeah. And if you want a session on how to do that, and I think you might have seen it, Charlie, actually, but for folks out there who didn't see it, Andrea Bozzi did a session on how to create like 6 hours worth of video on your phone recently. So, and what he talked about was how to break down a video and push it out in different ways onto different channels. So he's done 2 sessions on video. So if that's something that like you're needing to access now or wanting to access now, maybe check out those 2 sessions. He did 2 sessions on that. Yeah, I think also what I got from this, I like the fact that you do 3 months worth of planning, because I've been, you know, on this journey now for a little while, and I've been experimenting with the 1 month. You don't realize how fast a month goes by, do you? And all of a sudden, you know, what you thought was giving you a break, you're all of a sudden going, oh, what? I'm gonna do this again now, you know? Yeah.
Yeah, it is like that. Like, even with 3 months, like you do the 3 month process, as soon as it's up and live, you have to have a process that kicks in to start again over that 3 months, because you can't just work on it nonstop all the time. There's other things in life. So yeah, so you're right. It doesn't, what you'll find is actually the time that you plan for doesn't really, like, it doesn't change how much you can do, because if 1 month, you get 1 month out, you got to start again. But same with 3 months, because you're making 3 months more.
Don't tell me that, Stanley. Don't tell me that. I'm like, oh, this is a new way. Yeah.
But it is, there is like efficiency. So I think 3 months is probably that's why we do 3 months. It's a sweet spot.
Yeah.
That's what we've found is the most efficient. So 1 month is very efficient. It's much more efficient than 1 week. But then 6 months isn't much more efficient than 3. So the effort to go up to 6 months isn't there for us, and too much changes in 6 months. We've had 3 new staff start in 6 months. So, that's our whole world's changed. So it would be silly to plan that far ahead.
Yeah. And if you want a session on, just spitballing here, we had Tracy Henna on, and she talks about random acts of content. So just like what you're saying is if you plan 3 months, or you plan 6 months, you've still got to have these random acts of content. You don't want to set something out and then never touch it again. You're going to be putting things in. So give yourself some space to put some things that are happening right now, into your content. I just want to jump really quick over to Facebook, just because I know that the guys have been really interactive, and I want to make sure there's no questions there.
I have to, next time we do this, I have to get the Facebook ones up so I can see.
Yeah, just lots of thank yous for a great session, some new direction for an area of previous frustration. What a great idea. Would love to see this in action. Yeah, and heaps more positive comments. But I think that's probably us. There's no more questions coming in. Cool. We've had a great session. I've gotten so much out of this as usual. Your team is stellar. Sian, thank you so much for joining us today. We are really appreciative. Yeah, and we're looking forward to seeing a little bit more of your face maybe next year, hopefully. That would be cool, or later this year, because I know we have a bunch more sessions planned for the year. So do check out those sessions on the main dashboard of Digital Boost. You can RSVP there. If you tune in with us via Facebook or LinkedIn or YouTube, just remember that you miss out on a lot of promo offers from folks, big providers. We have all of these provider offers, and you can't access those without registering. So I would encourage you, we have competitions and things like that where you can win huge prizes, but you got to be registered at digitalboost.co.nz. So have a wonderful day, Stanley. Have a wonderful day. Sian, thank you.
See you later, guys. Thanks, everyone.
We'll see you next time, everyone. Ka kite.